Okay, so I went back and rewatched The Last of Us Season 1 in preparation for Season 2 that will be airing on April 13th. Season 1's filled with a lot of comparisons and Easter eggs that I'm going to point out as I do a video for all 9 episodes of Season 1. So without further ado, let's get back into The Last of Us Season 1, Episode 1. When you're lost in the darkness. Okay, so let's start with the prologue, where we get some good Easter eggs and one small difference from the game to the show before we hit the fast forward button 20 years to the present day with Joel Miller. It actually is the year that the show takes place in. In game, it's 2013. In show, it's 2003, a 10-year difference. I really don't think it's a big deal. I'm sure there was an explanation for it. I don't recall. My thought would be that when they do fast forward 20 years into the future, it would simply be the present day for all of us here watching the show, which would have been 2023 at the time, which is when the show debuted. A small little change, stuff like that. Come on, guys. We can't get mad at every single change. There are some things that are certainly worthy of being critiqued. 2003, 2013 is not one of them. All right, so let's point out some of the Easter eggs that I noticed here. This is fun stuff for everyone that played the game. We're going to start off real quick here just with Sarah. Sarah is rocking a Halcyon Drops t-shirt, which is what she wears in the game, and you even see some posters of it in her room. It's a fictitious band that I actually just read. Apparently, Neil Druckmann's daughter, when she was little, I guess she had a plushie, and she called it Halcyon Drops. He then took that name, which is a very unique name, and then applied it to Sarah's favorite band in show. So I thought that was a cool addition. Again, it's just like those little details that you notice that you see with Naughty Dog and Neil Druckmann being involved that just add that extra little bit of touch and care to it. Next thing I wanted to bring up is whenever Sarah gives Joel the watch for his birthday, which is a very nice cutscene there right at the beginning of the game before all the madness happens. Joel plays a little joke on Sarah.
It's nice, but I think it's stuck.
And then goes on to ask her how she managed to afford such a thing. Okay, so the next Easter egg I want to point out is something that actually draws a game comparison from the beginning of The Last of Us Part 2, but it makes its way here into the first season of the TV show, and that would be the DVD that Sarah takes from the Adler's house, which is Curtis and Viper 2. Yes, Joel, he's all about that action. He loves those cheesy, corny action flicks. She knows that it's right up his alley, especially the sequels, it would seem. We don't get reference of Curtis and Viper 2 in The Last of Us Part 1, but we do get reference of it at the beginning of The Last of Us Part 2 when Ellie and Dina are going along the creek trails just right before they get to the supermarket. The next comparison from the game I want to bring up is when Joel, Tommy, and Sarah are getting the hell out of Dodge. They hop in a truck, they take off, and there are moments that or almost like spitting images from the game. I'm thinking of whenever Joel and Tommy are driving to the intersection there and they are looking which direction should we go, which way is Austin, how are we going to get out of here, and you see the cop cars flying by. Just a few moments after that, we get to the burning farm where in-game Tommy laments that it's Lewis's farm that's burning down to the ground. And in the TV show, Lewis actually happens to be Jimmy. In the game, it's kind of funny because Jimmy is the neighbor that comes crashing through into Joel's office right there where he gets the gun out and then shoots him in front of Sarah. So not sure what Lewis did to offend the writers and the showrunners there to get written out of a very critical moment here in the game and episode, but we got Jimmy here instead. Perhaps Jimmy just had such a strong showing and performance that day whenever that little cutscene was recorded that Druckmann remembered it all these years later and just wanted to pay a little homage to him. Okay, so let's fast forward 20 years to the present day, the Boston QZ. Okay, so the very first thing that I want to bring up here about the Boston QZ is a humongous missed opportunity for the casting department of The Last of Us, where they could have done complete fan service for everyone that's played the game, and that's casting Jerome Flynn, aka Sir Bronn of the Blackwater from Game of Thrones, as Robert. If you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. Robert in-game looks like Jerome Flynn or Sir Bronn of the Blackwater from Game of Thrones, complete doppelganger. And as we know, the HBO alumni program is buzzing. Okay, just look at the two leads of this show with Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. Both have Game of Thrones credentials on their IMDb page. A little change from the game to the show here that I kind of scoffed at a little bit. I don't know. It bugged me like a teeny tiny little bit. In the show, we get Joel, who has not spoken to Tommy for 3 whole weeks. And as a result of that, Joel's ready to deal all kinds of drugs to Fedra, to secure a battery, to get it into a vehicle so he can travel from Boston, Massachusetts, all the way to Wyoming, just because he hasn't heard from Tommy in 3 weeks. Now, Joel in game, we don't even really hear about Tommy until we're approaching the dam, where Joel gives a little story about the last time he spoke to his brother. So I don't know, in the span of 3 weeks, Tommy met Maria, they got married, and then he got elevated to shift supervisor there at Jackson. The more likely answer to that is probably he's not going to speak about Jackson over the open radio waves there, out of fear that raider gangs listening nearby and they decide to storm the place. But that was just something that I thought was interesting, funny, and it just was like a little kind of silly in a way. In the show, the guns are replaced with a car battery. The battery is obviously a item, mechanism, whatever you want to call it, that's going to give Joel the ability to hop on out of Massachusetts and drive his way over to Wyoming to be reunited with Tommy. So again, little minuscule changes like that, guys, they don't matter, okay? And in this scenario, I understand why they did it. And it's probably not a long shot to understand how a car battery could be a valuable commodity in the world of The Last of Us. If you just even take a look a little bit down the road there in a game, the car battery is brought up again, right, whenever we get to Billstown. So they kind of just move the car battery from the Billstown scenario there in the game, and they put it into the Boston QZ. This is a super mondo nitpick here, and it can probably even be explained, but I just wanted to bring up Joel's revolver. Actually, Joel's arsenal, a couple different guns here in Joel's arsenal here I wanted to bring up that popped up here in this game. In the show, we see Joel. He opens up the floorboard. That's where he has all his little goodies there. His melee items, his revolver, everything that could put Joel in the best position possible to have a successful no-return run. Boy, we're hurting, man. Oh my God! Holy! One of the items he pulls out is his revolver. So he already has it in this scenario here. In the game, we don't see Joel get the revolver until they get to the Goldstone building at that part right where he jumps down by himself. Tess and Ellie stay above. Joel's got to clear the room out, like 4 or 5 runners down there and 1 clicker. And now he has the revolver for the rest of the game. And obviously we know eventually it ends up in a shoebox, which we're going to table that conversation for now. Okay, and the last gun that I want to bring up is the assault rifle. Oh my God, we have to wait until Salt Lake City, Utah to get our hands on that bad boy in the game. And guess what? Joel gets it before he even leaves the QZ. Look, this is actually something that I've always kind of like frustrated me just a teeny tiny little bit, how late we get the assault rifle in a game. It is a fun weapon with short to medium range combat. But again, you don't get it until you're at the hospital and you start taking out Marlene's fireflies. But I just laughed at that. I'm like, look, TV show Joel, he's just so spoiled. He doesn't have to wait till Utah to get that assault rifle. He's going to get his hands on that about 12 hours before we get to that point of the game. All right, guys, so that's all I got for you here on this one. Let me know in the comments what I missed. There's other stuff that happened in the show that didn't happen in the game. I kind of want to focus more on what we see in the game that makes its way over to the TV show. It's fun to talk about those things. It's fun to catch like those like little details and again, Easter eggs that we catch in the show. I'm going to do a video for all 9 episodes here, just pointing out the little comparisons. So please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the Last of Us content here, as we are in full-blown Last of Us season right now. We are within hours now of The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered coming to the PC with 2 new playable characters on the no return mode, Bill and Marlene, which is awesome. We're talking about Season 1 right now, and now we're seeing these Season 1 characters make their way over to no return, which will be a ton of fun. So I'll be jumping into that. And obviously, as I have already said, we have The Last of Us Season 2 coming April 13th. I think what I'm going to do before every episode is do like a little prediction video about what we're going to see from game in that episode of that TV show, and I'm really going to challenge myself throughout the season. I will not watch the previews. So I'm going to guess where the next episode is going to go, and I'm going to guess what we're going to see from the game in there. Something as silly as like the exact dialogue that we see from the game in there. They're really faithful with the big dialogue moments from game to show. So I'm going to try to predict some of that stuff, just something goofy to have fun with. And then, of course, we're going to break down after the episode comes out what we saw from game that made it into the show. So again, we got a lot of Last of Us stuff coming out here for about the next month or so. Please consider subscribing so you don't miss any of that. Let me know again in the comments what you guys think, and I'll catch you on episode 2 and no return. That's right, baby. We're back. All right. See you guys.